Hello, everyone, and welcome to Molehill Mountain, episode 177. This, right here, is the one they call Andrew Eisen. They've called him some other things, but we don't repeat those names in polite company. So, hello, everyone. I hope you're having a lovely week. Hello, Jordan. Hello, Otritsu. I hope you had a lovely Valentine's Day. I had a very long and exhausting Valentine's Day. I was at work for about 12 hours, and I was thinking, hey, you know what would be funny is if I played that HuniePop video game, which is a sexy puzzler. It's a match 3 puzzle game with anime girls. And I was at work most of the day. I was thinking, oh, this is never going to work. The reason I saw it is because a bunch of the gaming platforms have sales for Valentine's Day, and HuniePop was like under $3. And I was like, you know what? If I get home in time, I can do that. And I did. I got home in time. I think streamed it for an hour or two, 8 o'clock last night my time, and a good time was had by me. Can't speak for anyone else, but I thought it was pretty funny. Um, I'm guessing it gets really raunchy later because I only played it for however long I streamed it for, so hour and a half, 2 hours, and I don't, at least in the opening hours, I don't know why it's banned from Twitch, because there's a few bad words in it, and there are some overly busty anime girls in it, and some of the dialogue is a bit racy, but other than that, pretty tame game. Um, I played it a little bit more after I quit the stream, and the girls do start sending you sexy photos on their phones. Not sexually explicit, but definitely R-rated. There's a little bit of nudity. Um, so pretty darn decent puzzle game, though. I was actually mechanically impressed with the game. It's pretty well done. Hello, Scrungle. Um, but it's got voice acting that's actually just fine. Um, let's see. Tritsu says banned on Twitch because the late game stuff has the girls in the nude with their naughty bits on full display. Hmm. Okay. So I guess Twitch has a no nudity policy. Did the girl with the terrible tie send me pics? I forget who sent me pics. I think it was the gal in the fitness center. She sent me an upskirt pic or something. I think. Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, happy Valentine's Day. Then I got called into work late, and I was up until I didn't go to bed until 8 in the morning, and then I had to get up less than 4 hours later to continue working for a few more hours. So I'm very, very tired. Andrew is a tired boy. Oh well. I actually just noticed that. I was reading. I was doing some research for a topic that I'm actually not going to discuss tonight, and I saw on Polygon review Shaun the Sheep, Farmageddon. I was like, oh great! I like Shaun the Sheep. I like Aardman Entertainment. I liked the Shaun the Sheep movie that came out 5 years ago. I'm looking forward to Farmageddon, but they didn't mention a release date, so I looked at the theater listings and it's not out this weekend. I was like, oh. And I went back to the article and it says now streaming on Netflix. I'm like, oh! And by gum, it is streaming on Netflix. So that's what I'm doing after this podcast if I don't fall asleep. Polygon does game reviews again. Um, I don't believe it ever stopped doing game reviews among a million other things that it covers. Um, Matthew says, so you're doing crunch for a deadline or just busy? There is a software issue that is requiring a lot of overtime to fix because the product is already out in the field and we're trying to fix it so that our employees can use it and our customers don't get very angry at us. So it's an iterative process, and the problem is it's one of those things that it has to work on multiple different platforms and different operating systems. And so you fix one thing on one platform and it breaks something on another platform. It is just a mess. But no, it's I wouldn't say it's analogous to like video game crunch where there's a product with a specific date. We already released the product. We just found a problem, which in and of itself is something that you can work around. It's not that it doesn't work. It's if you do something really specific, you can screw yourself up. So don't do that. Um, and for like 3 weeks now, we've just been iterating and iterating to try and hammer out every problem on every permutation of platform, OS, device, everything is. It's just a pain in the butt. So it's just required. But I'm getting paid, so hey. Let's see. Jordan says, too bad something like Google Images doesn't exist yet. Doing a simple Google search would save you a lot of gameplay if you want to see the hot pics of the questionably drawn anime girls. And I say questionably drawn, not that they're poorly drawn, they're just not realistically drawn. They're drawn in the style of many anime. So if that's your thing, that's your thing. But yeah, I'm sure you could Google the pics if the pics are all you're going for. Yeah, but uh, it's a fun little puzzle game. It's mechanically solid, so good on whoever made the game. Probably HuniePop Studios or something like that. Um, you already have Honey Cams. No idea what that is, but I'm guessing it's their follow-up game. Um, So I'm damage control? No, I'm quality assurance. Um, I guess you could. So basically, I determine what's wrong and how to reproduce the issues so that our developers can fix it, and then I verify that it's fixed. Jordan says, "Do you think what's her face, which is I forget her name, but the fitness gal, still holds up her breasts even if she's undressed?" Yeah, because each character in the game, at least so far as I've seen, only has one pose, and the fitness gal, her pose is to have her arm jammed under her bust like this, just holding her bust up because I guess she forgot a bra. So if she's ever fully nude in the game, at least the no the cell phone picture that she sent, that was a completely uniquely drawn art asset. So she's in a different pose there. Um, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So I'm tired because I've been working a lot. This is not standard. The hours I'm putting in, that this is not normal. This is not every product we release or everything. This is highly unusual. So I'm not bitter. I'm not. I'm just tired because I've been working lots of hours and I'm getting paid for it. So I also am not. Anything can happen, of course, but I'm not in any danger of losing my job when this is over. The only thing I have to worry about is less overtime on my paycheck. you know. So when this is over, I'll be back to only a few hours here and there of overtime where required. Um, so But yeah, so not a I'm yeah I'm QA, quality assurance. So I I'm not going to, although I probably kind of will. I was going to talk about what's his face, Tim Sweeny, the CEO of Epic Games, who had a keynote at DICE in which he said a bunch of stuff that didn't. Hang on. Let me make sure that's my phone. Let me make sure that's not important. Okay, yes. Not important, just a friend wishing me a happy Valentine's Day. Um, Jordan says, so if the quality isn't insured, we blame you. Got it? Well, it's not quality insurance, it's quality assurance. um, and this particular project that I'm working on is not one I've been responsible for, so any problems of it hitting the field with bugs that weren't caught by QA, not my fault. I wasn't working on it. I was working on a completely different project. I'm just brought in as a subject matter expert. So, a SME, subject matter expert. They literally refer to us as SMEs. uh, uh, corporate jargon speak. It's always fun. Um, oh, so Tim Sweeny. Yeah, so he basically, I read articles in Gama Sutra, Polygon, IGN, Kotaku. It's made the rounds about Tim Sweeney's uh, keynote address, and they all focused on some idea of politics in games and what should be in there and what shouldn't, and what the creatives should do versus what the management should do. And reading the excerpts in various articles made Mr. Sweeny sound like a very mealy-mouthed individual who is trying to, and I hate this phrase, but have his cake and eat it too, by saying two things at the same time. Like, it's okay to have politics in games, but we shouldn't put politics in games. There should be a separation between the politics in games that we have but we don't put in there. And I'm reading various articles trying to piece these quotes together in the right order, and I'm like, what? And all of these write-ups in the various publications are taking him to task for saying something that's, well, one, not making a whole hell of a lot of sense, and two, if he's saying what we think he's saying, that's really dumb. So Tim Sweeny himself took to Twitter to clarify what he meant, and I read those too, and I was like, okay, that's all well and good, but that doesn't appear, using my words carefully here, that doesn't appear to be what you said based on the reporting I've read. And I was thinking, man, I would really just rather find a transcript. And I found an actual video of the keynote, like 20 minutes before I started the podcast, and it's a 33-minute keynote. So I'm not going to talk about the thing that I've been talking about for several minutes and probably will continue talking about for a couple more, because, to be fair, I haven't actually listened to the keynote or read a transcript, so I'm not totally clear on what exactly Mr. Sweeny actually said. So, but I will note this. Based on his quotes, he did seem to be saying that at the very least we need to be careful. We game publishers need to be cognizant of the politics that we put in our games. It's okay if it's a creator kind of driven thing, but we companies should stay out of it and not that kind of thing. And just to throw this out there, um, Tencent, the Chinese company, owns like a 40% stake in Epic. Remember when Blizzard banned Blitzchung for uh, supporting human rights in China, and they're like, oh, politics, oh, no, ban. And everyone's like, that's because you make a bunch of money in China, ain't it? And Blizzard's like, what? What? No! No! why would you even think that? And so that whole thing, yeah. So it really sounds like, and again, I have not read or watched the full thing, so maybe it makes a whole hell of a lot more sense and is a lot more eloquent in context. Uh, but what it sounds like is yet again another publisher saying, hateful bigots are made very uncomfortable when they encounter themes in our games that point out what terrible people they are. And we want to continue making money off of them, so let's not talk about any themes that might make hateful bigots uncomfortable because we still want them to buy our games. That's the sense I get out of it. Don't know if that's what he actually said or meant to say. Maybe if I find time, I'll actually watch his keynote and we can talk about this more next week. So, let's see. Scrungle says, keep modern politics out of video games. I play games to escape reality, not be reminded of it. No. There are lots and lots and lots of games. It also depends on what you mean by politics. Politics is simply describes the relationship between persons in a society of persons. It doesn't mean a... Now, if you're talking about, specifically American governmental politics circa now, yeah, we get enough of that in the news. I imagine a lot of people are like, I get that in the news. I'm living it right now. I don't want to live it in my video games right now also. And that's perfectly valid, but that's not what politics in games means. So, the problem with politics in games is it's such a broad phrase to be completely useless. You know? If you had literally no politics in games, you would have almost no games at all, period. But when people say keep politics out of games, normally they don't mean, the general idea of politics, the relationships of persons in a society. They mean usually a specific handful of topics that they're tired of hearing about, which on a case-by-case basis, hey, I hear you. But there's plenty of games out there. If a creator wants to... Now, something that Tim Sweeny did specify, let me pull it up real quick. That's... Nope, can't find it. Can I find it quickly? Nope, can't find it because all the quotes are spread over like 4 different articles. But he said basically, and I agree with this general point, is that creators should be free to create whatever the hexville they want with any messaging and themes and perspectives that they want. And publishers are certainly free to fund or not fund that project because it's their money. But yeah, but generally, I get the idea of the unpleasantness of reality right now. I don't need that in my games because I'm already living through it. I totally get that. For example, I'm not into You know how in a lot of zombie stories, kind of the point is that we people just can't get over our own petty crap to come together and focus on and defeat a problem that's literally eating us alive? Normally, I like movies like that, which, typically zombies kind of stuff, but I don't like those stories right now because, again, that's what we're living through, and I just can't stand people who can't put aside petty grievances long enough to, focus on the important things. So, depending on which way you're coming at it, I can agree with that. But it all depends on exactly what you mean. So, want a House of Cards type game, but that's the only type of politics I want to see. I've never watched House of Cards, so don't know. Certain Blizzard characters are gay in America but straight in China? That I had not heard. Yet people still praise Blizzard for being ever so progressive. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's a changes they were forced to. If that's the case, did China force them to make those changes in order to sell it in China? Well, I mean, halfway there. And if that's true, shame on China for being bigots. If that's the case, I do not know that. So, politics, as in if it serves no purpose in the story and is there solely for pushing an agenda, well, whether it be right or left shouldn't be in the game. Uh, Again, that's not what politics means. If your statement, if it serves no purpose in the story and is there solely for pushing an agenda, well, that's its purpose in the story is to push an agenda. But again, it really depends on specifically what you're talking about. Now, I don't know what you're talking about, but that could be oh, I see, yeah, or it could be a horrible bigoted thing, and shame on you if that's the case. But I can't think of really any video games that I felt were overbearingly pushing some type of weird agenda. You know? I have heard bigots claim, and I'm not calling you one, I have heard bigots claim that just the presence of an LGBT character in a video game is forcing stuff down my throat or pushing an agenda. No, that's just that particular bigot being a hateful bigot. You know, gay people exist. Deal with it, you know. And but it's also interesting that the makeup of the characters in your video game is in and of itself, regardless of what that makeup is, a political statement of sorts. So, calling something politics is just kind of useless because it could mean anything. So, I do try to be specific about what I'm talking about if I'm commenting on a very specific thing and not generalize. I try anyway. It's hard to do. Let's see. Jordan, I'm cool with social politics as long as it's not ham-fisted at me and I'm given free will to decide my own opinion. Sure, you are. You always have no game is ever going to force you to have a particular opinion. Um, and it is true that a lot of topics and viewpoints can be ham-fisted and not handled well in video games. But that doesn't mean, I'm not saying you're saying this, but that doesn't mean that such topics shouldn't be explored in video games. It just means that those specific examples don't explore them well. And when you don't explore them well, you're open to criticism, which in and of itself is okay, so long as it's constructive and not harassing and abusive. Scrungle says, cough, Detroit become human cough. No idea because I haven't played the game because I just genuinely don't like any of that company's games. I've played two of them now. I've played Fahrenheit. What was it called? It's called Fahrenheit, right? What was the other name? Indigo Prophecy. which had a great opening, but the game is bunk. And what was the one where you yell Jason at the kid in the mall? Jason! Heavy Rain, which is kind of hilarious to laugh at, but it's not a good game. So I haven't played Beyond Good and Evil, Beyond Detroit, Detroit Become Human, and what's the other one? Two something. I didn't play them because they looked terrible, and I didn't like the earlier games. Um, so I have no idea what uh, political leanings or messaging or themes or are in Detroit Become Too Human, or whatever it's called, or how well they're handled. You know, but if they're handled poorly, I don't blame it on the inclusion of themes. In fact, I might laud the attempt while still criticizing it for failing in said attempt. Scrungle, I've played one game that did that to me, and it was This War of Mine, and woo, it was essentially 2D Sims with depression in a war-torn country. I've heard of that game, not played it. As for Gays and Games, I'm pretty happy with them as long as they are well written, like Veronica or Arcade Ganon in Fallout New Vegas. Yes, a better way to say that would be I'm okay with characters in games so long as they're well written. In other words, if you're going to bother having a character in a game, make it well written, straight or gay. So, and now that I've spent half an hour talking about Tim Sweeny while saying that I'm not going to talk about him, let's move on to what else? Oh, so last week I played the Sexy Brutale and the Return of Obra Dinn. And I've finished both games now, and my thoughts have evolved. I actually like Sexy Brutale a little bit better now, and I actually like Return of the Obra Dinn a little bit less now. They're both still good and worth playing, I think. I think Sexy Brutale actually, once you get the hang of, or once you fall into that game's rhythm, it becomes a lot easier to play. My criticisms of it were it's a puzzle game where you have to actually explore to find the puzzle pieces, and there's only like 3 puzzle pieces. It's easy to put it together, but you don't know what the puzzle looks like or what the pieces are. You just have to wander around until you find them, and then once you find them, you're like, oh, plop, 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 good, done. That never actually changes. The other thing that doesn't change is you never really get to know the characters before you save them from dying. So there isn't really any urgency or emotional connection with saving these characters, because I don't know who they are and I don't know who I am or what our relationship is. I'm saving them just because it's something to do in a video game. But the game actually does have a story that's revealed fairly late, but it's a decent story. I thought it was well done, and it's so charming in its aesthetic presentation that I was willing to overlook what I felt were shortcomings. Sexy Brutale got better for me. And I never thought it was bad, but it grew on me a little bit. Return of the Obra Dinn, I started out really liking, and then still like it, but once you've made it through the game, it's kind of a pain in the butt to piece everything together to solve the mystery of who died and where and how and who killed them. The reason is you explore the ship, and in various parts of the ship, you can, using a magic compass, see how everyone died. a snapshot in time. And so you have to mentally, using clues you see in these flashbacks, figure out who everyone is. And you do that in various different ways. For example, someone may be sleeping in a hammock with a numbered tag on it. You go, oh! And you look in the ship manifest and you see, oh, number 7 is this dude. Aha! Things like that. It's actually really clever. It's a lot of fun. The problem is once you've seen all of the flashback vignettes, it's really tedious to wander around the ship to re-prompt those flashbacks for a second examination. That's a real pain in the butt. I think mechanically Return of the Obra Dinn just needed a little bit more work. It needed to be a bit more convenient. I think because you have this book that you fill out with what you find out, and I think it would have been better if you could just, once you've found and seen the flashback, just play it from the book. So you didn't have to wander down the ship and into the hold to where it was, which you may not remember. It's written in the book, so it's not hard to find. It's just really tedious. Then again, maybe the game would be a lot shorter if it wasn't so tedious. I don't know. I doubt that was done specifically to extend gameplay length, but I completed the game, and it's not a very long game. It takes like 5 hours maybe, probably about 3 hours to get to find all the flashbacks, and then another 2 or so to piece it all together and figure out who everyone is and how they died and who killed them. Still, it's an incredibly clever game, and other than just some mechanical frustration. Like if he did a sequel to Return of the Obra Dinn, I think they could just use the exact same premise, but just make it a bit easier to navigate your knowledge in a single place without having to walk all over the place. I mean, for example, you know how in Resident Evil you pick up little notes and diaries and books and pamphlets and stuff that read part of the story, and you collect them and you file it together in the menu screen, right? And you can go back and you can reference that at any time. Because a lot of the times they have things like passwords and key codes in them. So imagine if you actually had to remember where the damn flyer or diary was that had the thing you need and had to physically walk back through the game to go find it. That's kind of how Return of the Obra Dinn works. I personally feel it would be better if it was all kept local. So I would rather... Maybe the creator felt like... thought of doing that. He's like, yeah, but once you stop wandering around the ship, then you're essentially just doing your taxes. You're balancing a spreadsheet. And fair point, but I still think that would be less frustrating. So, Scrungle points out there's a map that shows you the layout of ship and tells you where you are, but that's it. Right, and in Return of the Obra Dinn, each vignette has its own chapter in the book, and it will show you on the map where that vignette is. So you can go back to, so it's not impossible to do. It's just a pain in the butt, and it takes a little bit longer. Oh, you're talking about Underrail. All right. Yeah. So anyway, Sexy Brutale and Return of the Obra Dinn, both good games and worth checking out if you find them for a fair price. All right, let's talk about Dragon Quest: Your Story, which is one of my a couple weeks ago I put out a top 5 films of 2020 that I want to see right bloody now. So one of the movies on that list was Birds of Prey, which I saw the other week and really liked, and another was Dragon Quest, the movie, which came out on Netflix a couple days ago, and I watched, and I have very complicated feelings about, and I don't know how to talk about this movie without spoiling the ever loving hell out of it. So let me say right off that if you are a fan of Dragon Quest, not necessarily video games or RPGs, but specifically Dragon Quest, and even more specifically Dragon Quest V, yeah, watch it. You'll like it. If you're not specifically a fan of the Dragon Quest franchise, if you can appreciate pretty animation, you might like it. But I don't know if this movie's going to work for anyone other than Dragon Quest fans. But Dragon Quest is my favorite RPG series, so it worked for me. Is it a good movie? And here's where I start getting into spoilers, so duck out now if you like. Um, no. It's reviews are of course subjective, but I don't think I would find many people who would argue against me when I say that the pacing is bunk. Um, the character development is non-existent, and the narrative cohesion is tenuous at best. I don't think many people would balk at those statements. So you might say, well, that means it's a bad movie, right? Well, there's a last minute twist that justifies those decisions. And you might say, wait, are you telling me the movie is purposefully poorly paced with non-existent character development and narrative cohesion? Yeah. Yeah. Um that's kind of the point of the movie, which is a really weird choice. So, if it's purposefully bad, is it no longer bad but it's now good? I would argue no, it's still bad, because I don't think it had to be bad to make the point that they make. It's a very weird movie. Um, if you're familiar with Dragon Quest V, it's one of the most narratively expansive games in the franchise. It actually covers 3 generations of heroes. So the game exists in essentially 3 acts. Um, Dad drags his kid across the lands to find his mom, and then Dad dies, and the kids get kidnapped and sold into slavery. And that's a multi-hour first third of the game right there. Uh, there's dungeons and side quests and characters you meet and all kinds of stuff. Then 10 years later, the kids are adults and they escape slavery and they go on a quest to find mom again. But he gets sidetracked, as it's so easy to do in these games, and marries someone and settles down and has a family. That's Act 2. And again, that's pretty much a full game worth of stuff right there. So at the end of Act 2, Daddy gets stoned, like literally turned to stone. Actually, Mom and Dad both get turned to stone. And that's the end of Act 2. So another 10 years later, and their kid grows up into a hero and goes on a quest to find the magic MacGuffin that unstones his parents, and they join forces to go fight the bad guy, and it's the last third of the game. If you're going to adapt that into a Netflix show, you should probably make it a multi-part miniseries, not an hour and 40-minute movie. Because if you try to condense all of that into an hour and 40-minute movie, it's going to feel rushed. It's going to feel the narrative cohesion is going to feel very tenuous, and it's going to be hard to follow unless you know the plot of the game anyway. And you won't have time for actual character development, like the character that your hero meets and marries, childhood friend, which we didn't know until they meet and they say so. In the game, these are characters you actually spend time with during your childhood, so you know them. But in the movie, it's just, oh, hello there, Bianca, my childhood friend. Oh, childhood friend, I guess. So, also, they use a lot of Dragon Quest music, and I like that, but some of the music is used inappropriately. It's like they said, "I'ma use the Dragon Quest music." It's like it's not appropriate right there. "I'ma use the Dragon Quest music right here," and they do anyway, and it doesn't work, but it's cool to hear. So that's just a poor choice to me. That I don't think the twist of the movie explains that. Um, there's also a great scene towards the beginning of the movie where the kid quests for the first time, goes into a cave and fights metal slimes, which I had to pause the movie because I was laughing so hard. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Um, if you've ever fought metal slimes in Dragon Quest, it will be hilarious. If you've not, it's not going to make any sense to you. But I thought it was funny. So here's the twist. The movie is actually is not a retelling of an abbreviated retelling of Dragon Quest V, the video game. It's actually a dude, like you or me, or dudette, who is in a mall or theme park where there is a Dragon Quest virtual reality experience where you can go in and live Dragon Quest V in a couple of hours. So the whole movie was just this guy playing a virtual reality attraction at a mall kiosk or theme park or something like that. Oh. Well, that's why it's so condensed and rushed and reliant on familiarity with the franchise, because it's a theme park attraction. So why did they do it like that? Well, at the end of the game, the game like freezes and glitches out. Turns out some jerk put a bug in the game because he was just a jerk. And he's like, all you losers who grew up with Dragon Quest never grew up. You should grow up. Get a life, man. So I'm just going to ruin the game for you by introducing a bug. That's not nice. So the theme of the movie is it's not only okay, but it's good and healthy to have a emotional attachment to nostalgia, something nostalgic from your youth. And that's a nice message. That's a very weird way of packaging it, but it does work if you're a Dragon Quest fan. And they hide that twist until like the last 8 minutes of the movie. It is one of the oddest films I've ever seen. I've been thinking about it for several days now because it's just so weird. So if you wanted to watch it, I hope you stopped the podcast and went to watch it. If you didn't want to watch it, that's what it is. It is very, very odd. Now, I would still say I enjoyed it, and I have fun thinking about it, but I still think it's not a good movie. I still think you could have done the same thing without making because there's no reason that the game, the hero of the movie, the virtual reality game, the hero of the movie is actually playing an abridged version of Dragon Quest V. It could be a segment of that story. It could be its own story. Yeah, it could be a unique story built specifically for that attraction. Need sleep. But they didn't do it that way, probably because they wanted to capitalize on nostalgia, one of the most popular entries in the franchise. Can't blame them for that. Aesthetically, the movie's rather gorgeous. The art and animation is lovely. I do wish that they had stuck closer to Akira Toriyama's designs for the human characters. All of the monsters are pretty faithful to the original designs, except they're a bit more detailed. You know, the saber cats all have actual rendered fur now, but they still look like saber cats, right? Um, the humans, though, kind of forego. They're more adaptations of Akira Toriyama's designs, and they're not bad. They're just different, and I don't know why. I mean, if it was just the hero and all of the other characters looked exactly like their game counterparts, that would make more sense to me thematically. But they don't. In fact, Nera or Flora, I think's her Japanese name, I didn't even recognize until they said her name. I went, "Oh yeah, you're right." That because of the long green hair and the okay, yeah, I get it now. Bianca doesn't even look like herself. I never would have. Nera, I probably would have recognized after a half a minute of staring at her. Bianca, I probably would not have picked up if they hadn't said her name. Using context, I would have figured it out. But yeah, I don't know why they don't use the designs for the human characters. So that's why it's called Dragon Quest Your Story, because it's, you know, the Dragon Quest games and RPGs are not just something you passively watch. They're stories that you experience and become part of and actually live, and that's why they're such a memorable and important part of your youth. And that's good and healthy and okay. And that's a great message. I really like that because I too have very fond personal nostalgic memories for these games that I played when I was young. Um, Late single digits and teenager because I'm a little bit older. Uh, yeah, Dragon Quest I think was like 86 or 87, somewhere on there, and I was born in 80. So, um, I think Dragon Quest 4 was like 91, somewhere around there. Uh, so yeah, between like 8 and 11 is when I really played these games, the early ones. Then I jumped to PlayStation. I didn't have a PlayStation, so I never actually played 5. But I kept myself familiar with the stories and the characters, especially because they show up in other places. Like a lot of these characters, Nier and Bianca, for example, show up in the Dragon Quest Heroes games. And I wanted to know who they were and what their story was. And they look exactly like themselves in that game. There's one other thing I wanted to bring up, I think. I don't remember what it is. But anyway, I don't think it's a good movie because I don't think I don't think you can have a movie be good when its pacing and story and characters are glossed over, even if it's done for a particular reason. God damn with the yawning. Um, but I still really quite enjoyed it. Would I have if I were not a Dragon Quest fan? Probably not. So, as the title of this podcast may make clear, that's one of the ballsiest movies I've ever seen. Hey, let's make a movie specifically for Dragon Quest fans. Not video game fans, not RPG fans, specifically Dragon Quest fans. And purposefully make it bad to support our own thesis. That's I wouldn't have done it that way, but kudos to them for doing it that way. Jordan says, I'm that gamer who only knew Dragon Quest with the blue smiling Hershey kiss until someone told me what Dragon Quest really was. Yeah, the slimes. Um, I think most people would actually recognize a slime. That's a fairly ubiquitous image in video games. Oh, man. You know, there are a lot of bodily functions that you can put a halt to. You know, going to the bathroom, farting. Um, but yawning is sneezing and yawning are just two things that you can't like. Oh, I feel a yawn coming on. I won't yawn. Haha! I've overcome the. It's just something that happens whether you like it or not. You know what I hate? Sneezing while I'm driving because you involuntarily close your eyes. I don't like closing my eyes while I'm driving. It's a good way to get dead. All right. I think that's enough podcast. I think I'm going to have dinner and then go to bed because I'm tired. Actually, have dinner and then watch uh, Shaun the Sheep movie. Because I like Aardman's movies. Chaos says you can only put a stop to them to a point. Yeah, I mean you can kind of stifle it, but there's here it comes. But there's just no stopping it. All right, all right, Scrungle, you enjoy your RuneScape game. I've got don't get mugged in the wilderness. Yes, I've got so many sexy anime people to puzzle in HuniePop. I'm sure this game will last me years because there's like was there 8 different characters in this game, something like that. Jordan says legend has it, if you sneeze, yawn, and fart and hiccup all at once, your brain explodes. Yes, don't do that. So, yeah, I'm done. Follow me on Twitter at Andrew Eisen. YouTube, the YouTubes. Oh, hey, let me look at the calendar real quick. Hey, you know what comes out in a week? Thundercats Roar! I was actually looking for that because it was announced like almost 2 years ago. I was like, whatever happened to Thundercats Roar? Did that ugly little thing ever come out? And apparently it premieres next week, so I'll probably do a debut review of that, which I'll probably record tomorrow because the first episode is available on Cartoon Network's site. At least it was last I looked. So we'll see if I can get past the ugly animation. Of course, I mean the show's not. I probably will not like it because the show looks like it's aimed at super little kids, and I'm not a super little kid anymore. But I was Lion-O for Halloween once, like when I was 5, and there's another kid at school who was Mum-Ra. So I hit him with my plastic sword of omens. uh, so, all right, that's it. I'm gonna movie. No, food. Yes, food, movie, sleep. Yes, that's what I'll do. So have a lovely night and lovely rest of your week, folks. I'll see you next weekend. Bye bye.